Good evening. I'd like to call to order the regular City Council meeting for Monday, March 3rd, 2025 at 7 p.m. First order of business, opening ceremony, which consists of the national anthem, pledge of allegiance, and a moment of silence. Everybody please rise. Pledge allegiance.
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Please be seated. Mr. Smith, could you please take roll call?
Mayor Jacobs,
Please mark him excused and
Mayor Pro Tem Dold,
present.
Councilmember Hughes,
Here.
Councilmember Witt, here. Councilmember King,
Here.
Councilmember Dold,
Present.
Councilmember Karafotis. Here. You have a quorum of 6.
Thank you. Item 4 is approval of the agenda for tonight's meeting.
Mayor Pro Tem,
Yes.
I'd like to make a motion to approve the Monday, March 3rd, 2025 agenda as presented.
Motion made by Councilmember Witt and supported by Councilmember Karafotis. Any discussion from the table? Any discussion from the public? None being seen. All in favor?
Aye.
Motion
Just call for
call for vote.
Oppose.
all opposed.
All opposed? Motion passes. We have no recognitions for this evening. We'll move to item 6, comments from the state and federal or county officials. I see State Senator Dana Polinsky in attendance. I'd like to invite her up to provide council with an update on legislation.
Thank you, Mayor Pro Tem Dold and council members, manager, clerk. If you bear with me, usually I'm pretty brief, but it's been a while since I've addressed you and anyone who's on the live stream, so I do have some pretty significant updates. So in 2024, during what's called lame duck, which is essentially the month of December in Lansing, we passed some bills that I would like to highlight for you that are now law, and I think they're great bills. One is safe storage notification. So schools are now going to have to notify parents of our new child safe storage laws. So they're no-nonsense laws. They're very serious. If a child obtains a firearm and it's not locked up and they hurt themselves or even brandish it, there are significant fines and penalties. So it's a good thing that our schools are now, in Garden City Public Schools, are gonna now send something home to tell parents about this law. A lot of parents and grandparents, they're good people, they don't want harm to come to children, but they just don't know about the law, and sometimes accidents can happen. School safety and mental health. So in light of, school shootings that have affected Michigan, we put together a school safety and mental health package that requires all schools to implement standard response terminology to be used in response to emergency situations in schools, requires a behavior threat assessment and management team in schools, directs the Michigan State Police to develop and provide school safety and training material, and creates a school safety and mental health commission. We don't want a hodgepodge of school safety processes. We want uniform processes that work and that are operate in relatively the same way across Michigan's public schools. Another one that is important for me, just a point of personal, privilege, not one, but two, unfortunately, of my childhood priests. I grew up Catholic, ended up, in jail for being pedophiles. And I promised one survivor that I work with that we were gonna try really hard to extend the criminal statute of limitations for criminal sexual conduct in the second or third degree, so that there isn't a statute of limitations. So now, because the law passed, criminal indictment can be found and filed at any time, regardless of the age of the alleged victim, and there's no limitation on that like there was before. So, this will provide some measure of justice to people who were molested as children. It creates absolute due process. You get your trial and everything, but we're removing the statute of limitations on that. The Michigan Senate, next topic. So those were a few of the bills I just wanted to highlight for you. The Michigan Senate just won a lawsuit, and I'd like to tell you a little bit about what it was and why we did it. So teachers, I was a high school English teacher for about 20 years before I was a state senator. Teachers are telling me that the increased pay that we've gotten them over the years has been being eaten up, in some case erased, by their out-of-pocket healthcare costs. So for example, in Garden City Public Schools, there is an estimated out-of-pocket cost for healthcare between $2,500 and $3,500 a year. And that's a lot. Didn't used to be this way when my dad was a teacher, early days when I was a teacher. So in December, the Michigan legislature passed bills that protect teachers, police officers, and firefighters from these surging healthcare costs, the out-of-pocket costs. We passed the legislation in December, and the new Speaker of the House, Speaker Matt Hall, decided to keep back 9 bills. No real rhyme or reason why. These are the bills that protect teachers, police officers, firefighters from these healthcare costs. And he held them back, and he refused to give them to Governor Whitmer for her to sign into law. So we had to sue for that being unconstitutional, and we won. Speaker Hall has a constitutional duty to present the 9 bills passed last year, and these were bills that passed with wide bipartisan support. The court expects these bills to be in the governor's hands by March 19th. There's another bill. I had a coffee hour in Garden City, and I can't remember the man's name, but he really advocated for something better for our corrections officers. They have extremely difficult jobs. They're overworked, they're understaffed. So one of the 9 bills that was held would give corrections officers the same pension benefits as police officers get. That would attract more people to the profession. So, once these bills are signed, and we expect them to be signed and presented to the governor, corrections officers, teachers, police officers, and firefighters will be able to hopefully save some money. Next topic, and this is the last topic, tipped wage and earned sick time. So this was a lot of talk around Lansing. I don't know if it filtered down to you all. 2 bills that began as a ballot initiative, but did not unfortunately make it to the ballot, which I supported and are now law, are House Bill 4002 and Senate Bill 15. I'm the vice chair of a committee in the Michigan Senate called Regulatory Affairs. So all the testimony went through my committee, our committee, and I have a pretty full understanding of it all. So House Bill 4002 guarantees access to earned sick time for workers. So some people can't call in sick without losing a day's pay. We want to remedy that. So this would require larger businesses to provide a minimum of 72 hours of earned sick time to full-time employees. Smaller businesses, this would be 10 or fewer employees, must provide a minimum of 40 hours of earned sick time to full-time employees. This passing of this bill makes Michigan the most generous state on annual accrued earned sick time in the country. And it also increases the minimum wage to $15 an hour by 2027. Moving on to the tipped wage aspect. In the case of tipped restaurant workers, so you go to your restaurant, the server serves you. That's who we're talking about. In the case of tipped restaurant workers, however, my constituents, and I represent not just Garden City, I represent all of Livonia, all of Canton Township, all of West End, and all of Inkster. They spoke loudly and clearly and contacted my office by a margin of about 100 to 1, saying they want to preserve some sort of tipped wage, like Ohio, Illinois, neighboring states do. A tipped wage is a lower base pay rate. Now, it sounds counterintuitive. What do you mean they don't want more base pay rate? They're very concerned that if they were moved up to $15 an hour with the rest of the state, no matter what job, that the tipping behavior that we're so used to would change. During these hard inflationary times, maybe if I knew my server was making $15 an hour, I may tip less. I've been a server myself, no fewer than 6 different restaurants in 3 different states. Intuitively, I get that fear. So the bill I voted on would give Michigan's tipped restaurant servers a base pay rate each year through 2031, not to $15 though. And it's not gonna mess with tipping behavior. This is what the restaurant servers want. They came to the Capitol, spoke loudly and clearly, and I stood with them on that. Any questions about any of that? Council member?
If we can go back to the out-of-pocket costs for the fire department, maybe teachers, and hopefully the people that work in the justice system. Who's paying those out-of-pocket costs? Is that going on the municipality, or is it, what's it going on?
No, it allows bargaining to occur. Yeah,
That's all.
yes. So, any other questions? Okay. So I just wanted to tell everyone, I'm gonna hit Garden City again, but my next coffee hour is in Inkster. It's March 18th. if anyone wants to come, at 6 PM at the Dozier Rec Center. That's March 18th, 6 PM at the Dozier Rec Center. I also, because it's tax time, I wanted to tell residents about the earned income tax credit. Sometimes it's called the working families tax credit. Now, we passed this, and it is law. It is for working people who are still struggling. Gotta be working, but you're still struggling. Many people I'm finding aren't realizing that they qualify for this. We took the threshold to qualify from 6% to 30% to help folks who work but are still struggling. The numbers people tell me that for my district, it's an average of $734 boost to income if you apply for and qualify for and use the earned income tax credit on your taxes this year. It's called EITC. If you want to know if you qualify, go to senatedems.com/EITC. That's senatedems.com/EITC. Please follow me on Facebook. I do a lot of updating there. It's under Senator Polhanke on Facebook. And Matt told me that you finally got your 2.5 million that I was happy to deliver for you guys for the sidewalk gap filling, so you have more of a walkable community. I'm happy to be here on the day you got it. So if there are any other questions, happy, yes?
I have one more question. You just said the earned income tax credit, 30%. 30% of what?
Yeah, we raise the threshold so that more people can qualify.
You don't know the number, like the
It's
household?
30% of, let me think, yeah, it's a good question. And I should know this.
I mean, is it for people making $30,000, $50,000?
We raise it for.
I'm just curious.
The threshold, the income threshold.
Increased by 30% than what it was?
Yes, and I don't know what the percent is.
Okay.
I don't know what would be
Okay.
considered,
We can all go to
working
that
but still
website.
struggling. I'm sorry.
That's okay. We can
Yeah,
all go to that
I should have
website.
known that.
I just think that's the first question people are going to ask. Thank
All
you.
right, well, thank you, appreciate it.
Mr. Mayor,
Thank you,
if I could-
Senator.
Thank you.
Mr. Mayor, if I could just, Mr. Mayor, I just wanted to thank the senator as we accept the grant for the sidewalks. It means a lot to Garden City. We were able to do some things that I think benefited some people who may have had to put in a sidewalk on their own, and that should give us the ability to fill some gaps in town and make it more walkable. And as a dad who has a son who is in a wheelchair, it certainly helps to have sidewalks around town to get around. So thank you for your efforts in bringing the money to Garden City. So.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you. Seeing no other state or county representatives, we'll move on. We have no presentations. Do we have any community events? No community events. Do we have petitions or communications and no public hearings? Our consent agenda.
Mayor Pro Tem,
Councilmember Witt.
I'd like to make a motion to approve consent agenda items A1 through 5 as presented.
Support.
Supported by Councilmember Dold.
Careful.
Karafotis, sorry. Any discussion from the table? Any discussion from the public? Seeing no further comments, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Motion passes.
All opposed.
All opposed? Sorry. None opposed? Motion passes 6-0. Action items. City Manager Gibbons, would you like to give a presentation regarding the proposed amendments?
Yes, thank you, Mayor Pro Tem and Council. Tonight, I'm presenting a budget amendment to reflect some reductions in spending throughout the city. As Council is aware, this year's general fund relied on utilizing approximately $2.5 million of our general fund balance in order to balance the books. Upon becoming city manager, I instituted some spending reductions to lessen the impact of it on the general fund balance. As I've stated many times to council, I believe the importance of that general fund, our rainy day fund, to rely on during tough economic times or surprising bills that show up, help us maintain stability and create services that we can provide on a stable basis, especially police, fire, water, DPS, and our other city services are so essential. So with that in mind, I took on the task of essentially finding where we could reduce expenses in this budget year and then carry those over to the next budget year. My examinations revealed that we can significantly cut spending this year, but that we'll need to make some hard choices going into next year. That we're going to have to reduce spending in order to continue to balance the budget without eliminating our rainy day fund in a very quick manner. So since mid-January, that's become apparent. The attached budget amendment reflects significant changes in spending, particularly in Parks and Recreation, where we'll be having some staffing and programming reductions. Because without these reductions, we're going to continue to eat from our general fund, and the sooner we make those changes now, the more fund we can capture and kind of enter next year in a better fiscal position. Ultimately, we reduce expenditures by nearly $700,000. This is a conservative estimate. I anticipate we can do better than that throughout the year, but I don't want to overpromise, underdeliver. I want to, make sure I'm conservative in my estimates. You never know, something could break that could cause us to have some higher expenditures. So right now, I feel comfortable that we're around $650,000 in reductions, almost $7 in reductions. But there was also some revenue projections that we feel like we're not coming in at. So I want to make sure that we're as close to accurate for today, but also being conservative. It's just important to note, too, though, the spending on Parks and Rec has drastically increased since the opening of the Radcliffe Center, and without a sufficient revenue source to offset that spending. And the sooner we act to get that in line with the revenues it brings in a more fiscally responsible manner, the sooner we can move forward developing and right-sizing the Radcliffe Center to be the best it can be given our financial constraints. That's not to say that all programming at the Radcliffe Center or all senior programming or anything is going to disappear. In fact, we'll continue to be dedicated to that kind of programming, specifically seniors, which we receive some money to do, so we're going to continue to do it, and to make sure our seniors feel engaged and have a place to gather. But that said, we can only do as much as we can afford. I can't overprogram Radcliffe to the point where it impacts our police and fire. Our residents have voted for roads and public safety millages pretty consistently, and I want to make sure we honor those votes and address those issues. And then where we can grow our Parks and Rec program responsibly, do so. That's not to say we're not committed to them. That's not to say we're not committed to those programs. It's just to say we can only do with what we have. Our operational costs, I do think it's also important to explain with this budget, these are cuts that are operational costs. You may still see Radcliffe spending in the form of capital improvements because we received a significant amount of grant money that we have a very short time frame to spend. So while we may be improving the gym there, it's through county and federal money that's been given to us with a very short time frame to spend. There's a difference between that kind of spending, which is grant funded, which if we don't spend goes away, it's kind of a loss to us, and spending on operational costs where we hire employees to run these programs that come out of our general fund and that directly compete with the rest of the services in the city. So it's important to understand those two differences. So if you see us spending money on the Radcliffe Center with grant money, it's because we only have a short time frame to spend it. I feel like I would be wasting the Garden City taxpayers' dollars if I'm not spending what was given to us to do those things. At the same time, this is very counterintuitive and tough to do, but I have to be cognizant of those operational costs getting away from us and that we can't afford what we've done into the future. And then it negatively impacts the services Garden City consistently expect from us. So, as we continue through this year, I'll continue to work to develop next year's budget and tweak this year's budget to save as much as we possibly can. Over the next few budget meetings, council will be tasked with getting information and then ultimately passing a budget that will have hard choices. There will be cuts across the city in nearly every area in some shape or fashion. I'm hoping to do so in the most strategic and thoughtful way, but this is really a first step towards getting us in that direction. And I appreciate council's input and the community's input. I realize at a time when people's probably getting their newly assessed homes and their tax properties going up, and we're talking about cuts, it's a terribly unfortunate time to have to discuss these things all at the same time, but that's the reality of it. Though I will say on a good note, likely if your taxes are going up, it's probably because your property value is going up. And we do, for homeowners in Michigan, Prop A and heavily protect that your taxes don't go up more than inflation in Michigan, essentially. So, you know, while that doesn't make you feel better when your tax bill going up, it is a reality. Your house is probably going up more than we can tax. Not that I want to tax it all, but that's the reality of it. And Michigan municipalities, specifically after the Great Recession, are greatly limited in the income they can raise. So we can't take taxes through the roof or anything like that. In fact, the state comes in and mandates that we actually usually are able to tax less because of Prop A and Headley. This budget reflects, I think, getting closer to Garden City's stated goals, council's goals for me, and our citizens' expectations. And we'll continue to work that way and do as much as we can for the citizens with what we have.
Mayor?
Yes,
Mayor Pro Tem,
Councilmember
I'm sorry, I
Bugles.
have a question regarding what you just said. And we've talked about this at meetings, not in meetings. And there's a lot of people that are concerned when they're reading things in social media about our senior programming. So, I mean, can we say with confidence that our free senior programming and the dance is not going away, that we're going to continue those things?
Yes, first of all, senior programming existed long before the Radcliffe Center. It existed at the Maplewood Center in a pretty good amount. Can I say that we do exactly the same amount as we have in the last year when we were funding it tremendously? No, but what I can say is we can be really close to what we've always done and make sure we give all the free programs that we have to a certain degree. As I stated at the Radcliffe meeting, programs are evaluated on cost, not popularity, but our senior activities tend to be funded a little more on the outside of things and not run that expensive. So I can have some confidence we can still have robust senior programming and continue. And as far as, I'm sorry, the second part was your concern. Dance Express.
Yeah.
Dance Express operates pretty close to break even. I think we recently got rid of non-resident costs for Dance Express. I'm concerned that Garden City citizens might be paying a lot for someone who lives in another city to have dance classes, so I want to make sure it's fair. Garden City citizens pay taxes. Someone who lives in another city may not pay those taxes to help sort of subsidize the dance program. So I want to make sure it's fair, not to limit the access to children from other cities, not to make sure it doesn't remain as affordable. I think having my daughter dance for a little while, and if you do it in the private world, it's a lot more expensive. So I want to continue to maintain that very cost-effective program and continue to make that value that it's given to Garden City citizens.
Thank you. I hope that puts a lot of people at ease.
Thank you, Mr. Gibbons. Do we have a motion regarding the fiscal year 2024-25 budget amendment?
Mayor Pro Tem,
Mr. Witt?
I'd like to make a motion to approve budget amendment number 1 to the fiscal year 24-25 budget.
Support.
We have a motion made by Councilmember Witt, supported by Councilmember Hughes. Is there any discussion? Any discussion from the public? Seeing no further. I'm sorry.
For some time now, it's been questioned what happened to all the money. We know that we had a parasite come in that just kind of kept eating all the money. Nobody questioned it, which kind of bothers all of us. So my question to you guys, even though not all of you were in on this, is what happened to all that money? What happened to that 1.5% that you weaseled in on us during COVID, that we were told that we could probably get it back if we didn't get the state funds? That didn't happen. So what happened to that extra money? And when you talk about cutting different things from the budget, because now we've lost, what, $300 and some thousand because of the light project, why is it coming back that we're causing part of this? You guys stole that money from us for years, and then when it was brought up, we want it back because we deserved it. You couldn't tell us anything. So I think that everything needs to be audited. I mean, we don't know what the actual cost for Radcliffe is yet. We were told, quote, that's not going to cost the taxpayers anything. Well, it is, let's face it. So how can you go from maybe close to a balanced budget before this person came in to now we had a deficit and you had to take money from, what, a rainy day fund or something to trying to get it to balance? But yet there's no accountability for all that extra money that you guys took in for, what, the last 4 years from that 1.5%? And I think you owe it to the citizens to tell us where that money went.
Thank you.
Any other public comments? Seeing none, we'll vote. All those in favor?
Aye.
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 Any opposed? Motion passes 6-0. We'll move on to the MEDC grant agreement, sidewalks. Mr. Miller, could you, thank you, sir.
Good evening, Mr. Mayor Pro Tem and Council. Tonight, we're here to approve the grant agreement between the state, MEDC, and the city to begin the process for the sidewalk grant program, as mentioned by our good Senator Dana Polhanke. Thank you from me personally also. But it's before us. Kind of as I said in the memo, there were a lot of things we needed to do in order to obtain the money and enter into a contract with the state and provide the proper information so that we have it for the state to use. And then, of course, in turn, it'll be turned into this agreement, and then we'll be able to start to expend some of the money to begin the project. And while I'm talking about the project, I just wanted to talk about the GAP program. So we're looking at taking where there's no sidewalk in front of homes and putting sidewalks in to complete a grid program or kind of a grid system for the city. And we did have kind of a master plan of where sidewalks aren't, and then we took that and we're starting to put that into GIS. I started to work with Hennessy Engineering to create a layer, actually, so that we'll be able to tell kind of like a dot on the map where sidewalks aren't, so that we'll be able to focus in those areas and then move. I'm assuming it's going to be in the southwest. Maybe the data will tell us differently, but wherever it is, and then we'll kind of move, kind of going where the dots tell us we should go, I guess. Some of the things that are also important to talk about is connectivity of the sidewalks, where they're going, how they're connecting at the streets, at the intersections, and also to make sure that all the work is done according to the ADA accessibility requirements so that these walkable sidewalks are also usable to all people. So that is what is the grant that is before you. It's a grant agreement for $2.5 million. It does include administrative costs, engineering costs, and inspection costs that are all part of that in that $2.5 million. So.
Thank you. We have a,
I have
I'm
I have a
sorry, go
question.
ahead.
Mr. Miller, do you have any time frame when you expect to have the assessment done, like before you can start moving forward? And
Well, I hopefully it'll be approved. So I already kind of started working with Hennessy
Okay.
last week. We got notification Tuesday. So as soon as I got it, I called Hennessy and we started working on kind of a plan.
Okay.
So we do have to expend all of the money by December 31st, 2026. So kind of 2 construction seasons to get a lot of work done. So we're working as soon as we can, and they're already working almost. So,
okay,
all right.
thanks.
Thank you.
Mayor Pro Tem?
Yes.
I'm hoping, well, a little loud there. I'm hoping we're planning to spend maybe 60% this year. Hope it's not 50-50, just with construction delays and all that kind of thing. I'm hoping we're able to spend 60 or 30, 70% this year, leave the smaller end for next year so we don't run out of grant expiring.
Sure. So we'll look at that.
I know it's aggressive.
Mayor Pro Tem? Does this need to go out to bid?
It will have to. All the work will have to go out to bid.
Okay, so we've got that ahead of us yet, too.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes. So part of the grant and what was good with the grant is actually included administration, and then you'll see the budget, how I established that, is to develop bid specifications. And that's part of the grant. We'll cover all of that with Hennessy to do the bid specifications, and then also to really be able to direct the contractor. So since there's gaps all over town, we need to kind of focus in sections so that we don't have setup costs go up when you're moving around town. So they'll be able to concentrate in sections and go from there. So.
Okay, thank you.
Mayor Pro Tem?
Yes.
Mr. Miller, do we have a count yet of how many houses don't have sidewalks?
We don't yet. Really.
But it's coming, though, right?
It is coming, yes.
Okay, and then we talked about that the grant includes the administration costs and all that. Do we know what those totals are?
I
an
broke it-
idea?
Yeah, I broke it out in there. It was administrative costs of $150,000, engineering $150,000, and site location inspection at $100,000.
There it is, okay, thank you.
And also, Councilmember Dole did ask a question before, but I already requested from the city treasurer the GL lines so that we have it accounted for revenue, and then all the expenditures, the 4 expenditures that are permitted in the grant. And we have separate GL numbers for all of that.
Okay.
Mayor Pro Tem,
Yes.
I have another question, sorry. This might seem kind of silly, but if a home is identified as not having a sidewalk and they can get a sidewalk through this grant, but they don't want one, can they refuse it?
We haven't decided that yet, right?
We,
That's up to us, right?
that would probably be up to the homeowner. Hopefully, they will not look past this gift to create the grid, but it will be a disruption, as you know, it's in what some people may refer to as their front yard, but it is in the right-of-way. We're going to have to do a fair amount of surveying so we can determine where the right-of-way line is. But it will be disruption to the homeowners. There will be grading issues. All of that will occur on the private property, possibly. You know, we go 1 foot in, but there will still be some disruption to the grass area and all of that. As we identify the locations, we'll get letters to them to tell them the process and what we're going to be doing. So.
Mayor Pro Tem?
Yes.
I thought that we talked, when we put the other ordinance on hold, we said we were going to have another meeting, and the council was going to decide if we're going to require these people to get sidewalks, right? Did we say we were going to talk about that?
I kind of remember that. We did not. So
No, we said when we got the money, we
Yeah,
were going to
correct.
talk about it.
Correct, correct.
So it should be up to the council. I mean, we're not going to tell everybody they have to get a sidewalk.
I'm hoping to find out where we need them first.
Oh, that was my other
yeah.
question. I'm glad you reminded me.
Okay.
So it says, the work will focus first on city streets with connection points to state and county roads. I thought somewhere in that grant or the previous grants for sidewalk, it said that we had to start by the schools. Like 3 people asked me that this week.
Correct. That is part of it too. We will be doing some looking at those connections, a safe route to schools also. So we'll be concentrating on that area. As soon as we determine, of course, where we need to put them, then we'll be looking at where the schools are too. That'll be kind of another layer on the GIS system.
Is it required in the grant that we start connection points to state or county roads?
No, I don't believe so. I put that in there. For example, I'm trying to think of a good example.
I think you want to say Vinoy, right, where we had those issues with the sidewalk?
Correct. Vinoy, we've had a lot of Vinoy issues. I'm also thinking on Warren Road also, there's some connectivity points there on Warren also, so we'll be looking at that. But we do want to focus on city streets and city right-of-way before we go to the state and county roadways.
That's why I was confused, because it says the work will focus first on the streets connected with city or county roads.
I think connected to, so heading to
Connected
them,
to.
not on them. So making sure we hook up to so you can make to those
Okay.
main roads, not along them.
I'm
actually.
just
That's
thinking of
a
the sections
much
of the
longer.
city that don't have the most sidewalks. Like you said, it's going to be on the west side, or even over here on the east side.
Sure.
And they don't go, it's the middle of the neighborhood. But probably the majority of houses are going to be at the side streets going east and west, so they're not going to connect to, you know.
Yes, yes.
Okay, thank you.
I just put that in there to make sure that we're aware of connectivity points on those main roads.
Okay.
So, right.
Thanks.
Thank you, Mr. Miller. Do we have a motion regarding the MEDC grant agreement for the sidewalks?
Mayor Pro Temp,
Ms. Councilmember Karafotis,
I motion to approve a grant agreement between the city and Michigan Economic Development Corporation for sidewalk installation in a total amount not to exceed $2.5 million.
Support.
supported by Councilmember King. Is there any discussion from the table? Any discussion from the public?
Within putting in the sidewalks, where does the continuation of a sidewalk go to the street where we have culverts? People can walk around the block, but they can't cross if they are invalid or something else. I had a 80-some-year-old neighbor who enjoyed taking walks, and her situation was when she came to the end of the sidewalk where that culvert was, she couldn't cross the street because there's that deep culvert. So are you going to be addressing that on the corners? Because there's a lot of corners in the northwest section of Garden City where we have the culverts in front of the houses, and people are pretty much screwed if they can't walk around that. Because there's culverts on your east-west streets, not so much your north-south. But so I think that needs to be addressed along with your regular sidewalk issues.
Thank you. Any other comments from the public?
Can Mr. Miller address
Miller,
that
would
right
you-
now?
Thank you for that. We are going to address that, and that's a big item that we're looking at, and identifying those intersections where there are sidewalks, but you can't get to the other side of the street. So we will be doing that.
Thank you. Any other public comments? Seeing none? Do we have a motion?
We did.
Already did.
The motion.
All in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? Motion passes 6-0. We'll move on to item 11B3, the emergency purchase of police department elevator repair. Can we get the chief to provide us with some information, please?
Good evening, Mayor Pro Tem, Council. Tonight, we're here as kind of what the city manager just said, one of these unexpected costs that came up. The elevator worked, and then it didn't work. Sometime on February 15th to the 16th, a switch on the elevator got stuck open, which left the controller running, which overheated the motor, which burned up all the hydraulic fluid. We turned off the power. The next day, we were able on the 17th to get the maintenance company to come out and look at the elevator. Their diagnosis was a catastrophic failure, resulting in the engine and all the power units going to have to be replaced at a cost of about $25,000. This is the north elevator of the building, which is where all of our visitors use to access the second floor. It's extremely important and integral to the function of the police department. So we needed to go forward as fast as we could to get it fixed. Lieutenant Cover and DPS Supervisor Mahalik were able to talk to the elevator company that does our maintenance, and they were able to explain that this was not just I guess you would say like a time failure where it's the 30-year-old elevator and it just failed. This was an actual insurance claim possibly. So the city clerk was able to talk to our insurance carrier. He was able to give them some information, facts, and everything else. They decided to approve the claim for us. When they approved the claim, they took the quote from the insurance company and the Serval Pro, which is to do the cleanup afterwards, and said to just enter into the contract with them to get it done. So it'll wind up costing us up front $26,000, whatever the motion says, but we'll get all that back minus our deductible from the insurance company once the work is complete. So we'll have to front the money, but we'll get it back then. And we needed to go forward as fast as we could because, again, this is a entry point for everybody that comes into the police department. So we moved forward without you guys, sorry.
Thank you.
Mayor Pro Tem,
Councilmember Dole.
I'd like to make a motion.
Here, hold. Councilmember Dole. Can you pass that down?
What is it?
Less terms. Easier to read off. So just read that as the motion.
Oh, who'd it come from? Right?
Yeah,
Okay.
the
So it's a long
the suggested
motion.
motion was a little
Thank you.
heavy on narrative.
Okay. So I motion to approve the emergency purchase for police department elevator repair with Great Lakes Elevator in the amount of $24,500 and ServPro of Livonia in the amount of $1,930 and 19 cents for a total of $26,430.19.
Support.
Thank you. We have a motion made by Councilmember Dole, supported by Councilmember King. Is there any discussion from the table?
Mayor Pro Tem,
Yes, Councilmember Karafotis.
so just verifying, we had to do this, our insurance paid for it, we only paid for the deductible. What fund does the deductible come from? You know?
I don't know what fund the deductible.
There's a buildings and grounds fund within the police department that it'll likely come from, or one of their maintenance, right out of the 301, though.
Do we have a lot of things that, with our older buildings, that could be becoming in disrepair that are covered under insurance?
I think we have to take it case by case. This one, the elevator's as old as the building, but it wasn't a failure due to age, it was a failure due to the switch failing.
Okay,
So it's just going to be a case by case basis.
I'm glad we have that insurance. Thank you.
Any other discussion from the table? Any discussion from the public? Seeing no further comments, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Motion passes 6-0. Having no further business this evening, we're moving on to public comments. Please remember, this is not a time to go back and forth, question and answer with council. And please leave your contact information on the public comment sheet and give it to the clerk. This will provide him access to get you an answer. Any comments? Mr.
Mike Jones live on Donnelly in Garden City. Just like to make the citizens aware, if they weren't already, of two events that are coming up. One is this Saturday. The Kiwanis is having their annual pig race at Radcliffe. There's still a few tickets available. Last I heard, there was about 50. And the other one is the St. Patrick's Day lunch, which will be on Monday, March 17th. So urge people to put the reservations in for that.
Thank you. Anybody else want to speak? Seeing no one else? Okay.
I would just like to thank the Garden City Police Department for doing such a good job in issuing tickets for people blocking sidewalks. In fact, the job has been so well that I've been attacked on Facebook for mentioning it. So who's ever choosing to do that, doesn't bother me, because at least we're enforcing what needs to be done. And I also noticed that there was a little blurb on the little news thing that goes in with our water bill. So again, thank you to the police department for doing that, and keep up the good work.
Thank you. Any other public comments?
My name is Scott Smracki, live at James Street. For the past 10 months, my family and neighbors have been dealing with a local collision shop that is operating irresponsibly, illegally, and enabled, if not encouraged, by the city of Garden City. As a direct neighbor, my family and I take the brunt of their irresponsible business practices. The neighborhood reeks of paint. The dumpster was overflowing for 8 months. There are disabled cars parked on display on Middlebelt Road and typically James Street, hindering the view of public traffic. Since June, GCPD has been at my home approximately 40 times. GCFD has been out approximately 3 times, but according to a FOIA request, Garden City has only 1 documented incident. The smell is so bad it overtakes our home as well as the homes of other residents. We are unable to have our windows open on a nice day. Our children cannot play outside. And almost daily get hit in the face with the overwhelming smell of paint upon exiting our home. In addition, I have property damage from overspray to my vehicle, most likely all over my home, and probably the rest of the neighborhood. The city of Garden City has inspected the property and states there's nothing wrong with the automobile paint booth. However, I have an abundance of evidence in the form of video, photos, and documents that prove otherwise. The city refuses to acknowledge the facts. They inspected the property. They issued the business license. They are responsible. However, few citations have been issued. Many officers have witnessed the paint mist being exhausted and the strong, pungent smell of paint, as one officer stated. A message from a Garden City ethics member to Mark Jacobs on 9/22/24 states, "Good morning. I have a friend who is having an issue. He lives on James next to Garden City Collision. His name is Scott Smracki. Since June, due to the collision shop, he's had damage to his vehicle, has been harassed by the owner because of making complaints to the PD. I was at his house yesterday, and the whole area smells of heavy paint fumes. Numerous complaints have been forwarded to the ordinance department by PD, and he has no follow-up or phone calls from ordinance references complaints. Can you look into this, please?" So in closing, I request the council and the city leadership answer the following questions. Why is the city continuing to ignore the issues that have been raised numerous times for almost a year? Why was my complaint against the building department, the fire marshal, and the ordinance division on 11825 dismissed? Why is the business receiving preferential treatment over residents and other local businesses? My understanding is the business license was due to expire on 2/28/25. Has it been renewed? Or is it under review for these ongoing issues? It's the responsibility of the city to issue a stop work order as mentioned in an inspection report on 9/3/24. But once again, the city failed the residents by neglecting their obligation to make public safety a
15
top
seconds.
priority. This is a prime example of Garden City allowing local businesses to continuously violate ordinances without financial repercussions as stated in a council meeting dated 2/17.
That's time.
No wonder Garden City is in a financial state, but I'd be willing to bet some city officials will have no problem passing the buck and further victimizing longtime residents.
Thank you, sir. We have your information. Somebody will be back in contact with you. Any other public comments? We'll move on to the city manager's report, please.
Actually, Mayor Pro Tem, I'm all set tonight. I covered most of what I wanted to address in my budget and amendment, and
Thank you, sir.
thank you.
Ms. Hughes, do you have anything? Councilmember Hughes?
Nothing today.
Councilmember Witt, do you have anything?
Nothing tonight.
Councilmember King, do you have anything?
No, thanks, I'm all set.
Councilmember Dole?
I just have a reminder that this Thursday, March 6th at 7 p.m., Council Member Karafotis and I will be at Radcliffe from 7 to 9. So if you want to discuss anything, have any issues, please feel free to come up, and we're there to listen. So that's all I have.
Councilmember Karafotis, do you have anything?
Wait, I did have one more thing. I'm sorry.
Good.
Chief Arnosky, I have a question for you. I'm wondering, so looking in the monthly report for January, we had a little accident with the drone.
We did.
I'm wondering, doesn't it doesn't have something on it that lets us know when the battery's low, to tell it to return to home, or anything like that?
Yeah, it's the gamble you take, right? It's in the middle of an ongoing incident that's occurring. They're following the bad people. And do you break off, or do you push it a little bit more?
Okay.
To see if you can
You push
maintain the
it,
visual? And
Yep.
then it's supposed to auto-rotate itself down, which it did. Unfortunately, the sensor didn't pick up the fence.
Oh.
So as it came down as it was supposed to, the fence caught the corner of the drone, which is then cracked up to pieces.
Okay.
So.
But we got the bad guys. So,
Correct.
okay,
And I mean, that's
all
where
right.
that's what it's for. So if it gets damaged, but we complete the task, I think that's the mission, and then we'll get it fixed. And it was $542, I believe, total, which is a lot of money, but overall, versus the cost of the drone and the whole program, it's small.
Okay, I was just wondering, because I'm, I've never operated one, but I'm thinking it should have something like that on it, but yeah,
Yeah.
it makes perfect sense. Thank
Yep.
you.
I have a follow-up question to that. How often are we using the drone?
If I say a lot, that's not a really good number, but we've increased our use of it quite a bit. It was down for the repairs. Prior to that, though, it was going out as overwatch for traffic stops on midnights. So I would say, I don't want to say daily, but 3-4 times a week.
I know that when we originally got the drone, and obviously with our budget issues, we're not going to do it right now, but would it still be helpful to have a second one on the other side of the city? I know it's hard for it to go all the way.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah, for sure.
And then after going to the police station open house when we have the chili cook-off, our wonderful officers that do the drone had some great things they want to show people, so that'd be wonderful if they could come here and do it at a meeting. He's probably going to kill me for saying that, but
Oh, no, I completely agree with you.
I think that if we had the drone in here and the public could actually see what it does, and he can show all the things that we can do about getting the bad guys and what we can use it for to keep everybody safe in Garden City, I think that'd be a great presentation to
For sure.
have.
And we have an indoor drone.
Yeah, that's what I'm
that we
talking
use,
about.
So, I mean, we could bring that over.
Yeah, bring that in here, buzz everybody
I
around.
wouldn't want to bring over the big one and fly it around, but the little one that's all safe, we could do
Yeah.
it for.
Thank you.
That's all. I promise, that's all this time.
Okay. My
through?
turn? I have a couple things, good and bad. So after tons of social media posts this week. Everybody's getting their taxes. We're complaining about budget. You're hearing about all these costs. And I just want to say, I mean, to get right down to it, we're in the hole we are. There's only one reason, and that's because of our previous city administration. There's just been some mismanagement. Everybody wants to know where the money went. Nobody stole the money. It was just mismanaged. You know, there's people that are saying, why are we concentrating on the past and not the future? All our problems right now are caused from what happened the past 5 years. They're not caused from something we're doing now. Nobody up at this table right now had anything to do with that. And a few of us questioned a lot of things that were being done, and it all fell on deaf ears. But that's changing. So I want everybody to know that, you know, we had administration that mismanaged construction projects, grants, bonds, handling of renters, leases, contracts, all these things, and that's over. We have a new city manager, and he's spent every single day since he started cleaning up this huge mess, and there's still more to go. But he's doing a good job of it, and we're going to get there, and we'll make things better. This budget season is going to suck for everybody. Complaining about it's not going to make it any better. We just know that we're going forward. This whole council and the city manager are going to change things, and it's going to be better. It's going to be Garden City the way it used to be. So I hope everybody can understand that. We can't change the past, but we can fix it. And it might take a year or two, but we'll get there. The other thing I wanted to mention about our seniors, I'm glad that we talked about our senior programming. One thing about our seniors is the Senior Alliance. I don't think a lot of our seniors realize all the things that Senior Alliance can do for them. The number to Senior Alliance is 734-722-2830. They have nutrition programs. They have community employment programs if you're a senior and you want to work a couple extra hours somewhere. They have wellness checks. They have emergency grocery funds. They have a ride service. They have a cleaning service. Everything that they do for Senior Alliance is free. They actually have a chat line. So if you're a senior and you're at home and you just feel the need that, hey, I need to talk to somebody, and it could just be about the TV show you're watching or because you feel lonely or you need more socialization, they have a chat line. You can just call them and chat about things. They have so much more stuff to help you. So if you think you need help in anything, they have people to help you manage your medication and all your doctor's appointments and just tons of stuff. So please reach out to the Senior Alliance. They're here locally, and they will help anybody in Garden City. Again, that number is 722-2830. And the other reminder I wanted to say is that our Meals on Wheels program is really faltering. So over 100 residents in Garden City and some in Westland. We really need drivers, and now we also need people to actually help prepare the food. There's going to be big changes coming to the Meals on Wheels program because it can't continue to be funded by just the county. Other municipalities are actually helping out by trying to pay volunteers for their time. We may have to get there with our budget here in Garden City. I don't know how that's going to be possible, but there has to be something because this program may go to the wayside, and that would be awful. So again, if you feel like volunteering, if you want to help prepare the food or drive, even if it's one day a week, the number is 734-326-5202. And that's all I have.
Thank you. I don't have a whole lot, but I would like to comment on the mess that we're into. We have a whole new team sitting up here now. Nothing's going to change overnight. It's going to take us a while. We've have a lot to work on. I feel confident we have a good team here. We're working together. We're doing our research. We have a fantastic new city manager that I just can't talk enough about. Loves this city. He's very experienced, and I do believe he's going to get the job done. It just may take a while. Give us patience, please. That being said, I'd also like to, with the warm weather coming up, I'd like to see if we could open up the food truck ordinance and maybe take a few restrictions off to help them people out a little bit. And that's all I have. No further business. This meeting's adjourned.